Good evening. Hope all of you are doing well. Tonight we're going to be learning Maseches Yoma Daf Mem Hey, and we'll move at a quick pace. The hour is late. We're starting at the very bottom of Mem Dalet Amud Beis at the two dots where it references B'chol Yom Haya Zahava Yarok, that throughout the year, every day, the gold that was used had it says Yarok, it actually means more of a yellowish tinge to the gold. And Amar Rav Chizda Shiva Zahavim Hein, there were actually 7 different kinds of gold. Zahav, regular gold. Uzahav Tov, a better type of gold. Uzahav Ophir, we'll describe. Uzahav Mufaz, Vizahav Shachud, Vizahav Sagur, Vizahav Parvim. All of them we will describe. So let's go through them. Zahav, Vizahav Tahor, numbers 1 and 2. How do we know that they exist? Based on a pasuk. Zahav Haaretz Ahu Tov, the gold in that land was good, implying that there's gold, and there's good gold. Zahav Ophir Da'asi Me'ophir, that's gold that comes from that particular location. Zahav Mufaz, Shedom Elepaz, top of Memhe and Aleph, it's similar to Paz. Rashi, Shedom Elepaz, Matziv Kemargalit, it shines in a way like a pearl can shine. Zahav Shachut, Shenitve Kechut, not Shachut like from Shech, but it's kind of made out of rope. What does that mean? It means that the gold is very malleable and can be designed in any way that one wants to, just by the bending with one's hand. Daf Sagur, what was that type of gold referenced by Rav Chizda? It was a type of gold that was of such high quality that that when your store would open that was selling this particular type of gold called Zahav Sagur, all the other stores would just close. They knew you had the best product in town. Third line, Zahav Parvim. What does it mean? The gold of cows, Shadoma Ladama Parim, that rich color of red blood. That was the type of gold that we were talking about here as well. But Rav Ashi pushes back on Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said there were 7 types of gold. He says, no, the first 2, Zahav and Zahav Tov, really are just 2 levels within each of the remaining 5 of the 7. That's what he says here, Rav Ashi Amar Hamisha, and really there's only 5, and within each of the 5, the Kol Chad V'Chad, Ispe Zahav Uzahav Tov. There's different levels. There's 2 levels in each one. So really, there's 5 categories of gold, and within each category is 2 tov. There's regular gold, Zahav, and Zahav Tov. And Tanya Nami Hachia Bryce supports this. B'chol Yom Haya Zahav Yarok V'Hayom Adom. Throughout the year, the gold would have a yellowish tinge. V'Hayom and Yom Kippur would have a reddish tinge. Ainu Zahav Parim Shadom Aladama Par. And we see that this is the this is like the color of blood from the parim. It was that type of red. Says Gemara at the 2 dots, 7 lines down on Mem Hey and Aleph. B'chol Yom Makriv Pras Shacharis Pras Ben Arbaim. B'chol Yom Asadaka V'Yom Daka Min Hadaka. We said that throughout the year the Torah was well ground up, but on Yom Kippur it was Daka Min Hadaka. It was exceptionally well ground up. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in the Brisa. We know that the pasuk says Daka. Matamid Lomar. But why do we need the pasuk to already tell us Daka? Ve'alu Kvar Namar V'Shachakti Min Hadek. We already had a tzivui in the Torah that we needed to grind it up very well. That it shouldn't just be regular grinding, it should be an exceptional grinding. Order of the way down. So normally the rule is that the Kohanim would go up on the right side of the ramp as they head up to the Mizbeach HaGadol, the one that was outside the Mizbeach HaChitzon. We'll speak about the Mizbeach HaChitzon more today. The one that was in the main area of the Azar, not the one that was in the Heichal. The Amar Mar, says the Gemara, you mean the Mizrach. The reason that throughout the year the Kohanim would go up the right side of the ramp was because they were then going to walk right around the Mizbech in that exact way. And being on the right side of the ramp as they went up positioned them a little bit better. So that's why. But says the Gemara, V'hayom, but on Yom Kippur, the Kohen was Olin Be'emsa, the Yarden Be'emsa, to go up and down the very center, not right, not left, the very center of the ramp. Says the Gemara, my time in Mishum quote of the Kohen Gadol. Rashi here explained this because he's a Ben Bayis, he can walk wherever he wants. So it's a covet to the Kohen Gadol. He doesn't have to follow the regular rules. He's a special guest, as it were, and therefore he can walk even up the middle of the ramp. B'chol Yom, 1/3 of the way down. B'chol Yom Kohen Gadol Mekadesha the Raglav Minakir. But then our Mishnah said throughout the year, the Kohen Gadol would wash his hands from the kior, but on Yom Kippur he'd wash from a keton, from a special jug, a special pitcher. Says the Gemara, my time. Why did he do this? Mishum Kodesh Kohen Gadol, just like we saw why he goes up the middle of the ramp. So too here, that it's a covet of the Kohen Gadol. We said in our Mishnah, there's a machlokas how many fires there were in the Beis Hamikdash throughout the year, and then with each shita that we saw, there was an added one for Yom Kippur. So let's learn a little bit about that. That's going to take up about an omud. B'chol Yom hayusham arba ma'arachos. We saw different shitas in our Mishnah yesterday in regards to how many fires there were. Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis have taught us And they said as follows: B'chol yom hayushtayim ma'arachos v'hayom shalosh. In general, there were two. On Yom Kippur, there were three. What were they? Achas ma'aracha gdola. One of them was a large fire on the mizbeach hachitzon. Ve'achas ma'aracha shniya shel ktoras. And one of them was a small fire on the edge of the mizbeach hachitzon, from which we took the embers for the ktoras. Ve'achas, and here's the third one: Shabosif and Bo Bayom. There was a special fire that was made for Yom Kippur. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Next, Rabbi Yossi Omer, we're halfway down. Rabbi Yossi says, no, there weren't two throughout the year plus one for Yom Kippur. There were three throughout the year. The Chol Yom Shalosh v'Hayom Arba, and on Yom Kippur there were four. Achas Shel Ma'arocha Gedola v'Achas Ma'arocha Shniya Shel Ktoros. The first two are the same. The large fire on the Mizbeach HaChitzon and the small fire on the Mizbeach HaChitzon for the Ktoros. The Achas Shel Kiyum HaEsh, another fire that was meant to be available in case the primary fire on the Ma'aracha Gdola would wane. So then they'd have another fire, they'd have extra burning wood to throw in. Ve'achas shemosif and Bo Bayom, that was the fourth one, the one that was special for Yom Kippur. That's Shita number 2. Shita number 3, we saw Rabbi Yehuda, we saw Rabbi Yossi. Now let's see Reb Meir. Reb Meir Omer B'chol Yom Arba V'hayu Chamish. Really, throughout the year, there were 4 fires, not 3 and not 2, not like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Yossi. There really were 4, and on Yom Kippur there were Chamesh, but what were the 5? So this is common to all the shitas, that there was a major fire on the Mizbeach and a smaller fire on that Mizbeach for the Ketores. And Reb Yossi and Reb Meir agreed to the third one. One was one to maintain the fire. And the one that's Mechudash, the one that Reb Meir adds, is the following. He added in that for all of the parts of the korbanos that were supposed to be burnt but weren't yet consumed in the fire, there was another fire for them. And the last one was special for Yom Kippur. And then the Gemara makes the following diuk, 2/3 of the way down. Everyone seems to agree, as mentioned, to the first two. Ma'arocha Gedola on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the big fire in the middle, and the Ma'arocha Shniya Shel Ktoros, the small one from which the embers were taken for the Ktoros. Everyone agrees to that, but Minalan, where's the Marimakom for that? How do we know that that's true? Seemingly basic ideas, but Achos, at the end of the day, you need a pasuk to indicate where everything comes from. So it says the Gemara as follows. Amar Kra, 5 lines before the wide lines. Hi ha'ola al no kedal and Mizbeach kol halayla. That pasuk that says that the ola which is moked on Mizbeach kol halayla zomar rocha gdola. And the next pasuk, ve'esham Mizbeach tu kadbo zomar rocha shniya shel ktoros. Everyone agrees. Now, the Rabbi Yossi was of the opinion that there were 3 fires during the day. So he had added the one about the continuing fire, the fire for Kiyum. So it says, Gemara, Kiyum ha'esh minale. How does Rabbi Yossi know to add to the core 2 that everyone agrees to? How does he know to add this one? It says the Gemara, Nafkale mi ve'ha'esh al hamizbeach tu kadbo navav. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, what do you do with this drasha? If it's seemingly we need the kiyum, so how can you only say that there's 2 fires, Ma'arocha Shniya Shel Gdola, sorry, the Ma'arocha Gdola and the Ma'arocha Shniya Shel Ktoros? So what do you do with this drasha? Seemingly he's got a great Marimakom, says the Gemara, first long line, Rabbi Yehuda, that is for something else. That's not to teach you that you need a new fire. It's to teach you how to light the fire, which is Ahu, Tzasa Salisa Hudasa, to teach you that the way we light fire is by lighting little wood chips. The Tanya, as the Brisa writes, Hi Rabbi Yehuda Omer Minayin La Tzasa Salisa Shelo Tehela Barosh Shamizbeach. Rabbi Yehuda says, how do we know that the wood chips can only be lit on the top of the mizbeach with someone standing on the mizbeach? Talmud Lomar, as the pasuk writes, Ve'aish ala mizbeach tu kadbo. That's what he says based on the pasuk. So that's beautiful. And Amar Rabbi Yossi Minayin Sha'oseh Ma'aracha L'Kiyum Ha'ish. He says, how do we know? This Brisa is a beautiful Brisa. It gives us both shitas, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, in regards to the distinctions that we've seen in our Mishnah. And this Brisa is an excellent support to our Mishnah. So what about Rabbi Yossi? Shita that there's a special fire for Kiyum Ha'esh to sustain the fire, says the Gemara, Talmud Lomar, Ve'ha'esh al hamizbeach tu kadbo. So he learns it from a pasuk. The Rabbi Yossi, Atzasa Salisa Minale, we learned that Rabbi Yehuda used the pasuk to teach us about Atzasa Salisa, that one is obligated to light the fire from wood chips. So where does Rabbi Yossi learn that from? So he says, Nafkale mehicha de nafkale Reb Shimon. He learned it out from the same place that Reb Shimon learned it out from. What was that? Or 8 lines from the bottom of the page, first word on the line, Tanya, we have a Brisa. Brisa indicates that Reb Shimon learned about Atzasa Salisa, about lighting the wood chips, and that's going to be the same Mari Malcolm as Rabbi Yossi, as to where he learns it out from. What is that? The Brisa writes based on the pasuk, V'nasnu b'nei Aaron ha'kohen esh al mizbeach. They made Atzasa Salisa shlo tehel b'kohen kosher There we see this is not the shita we need. We need Reb Shimon, but here Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that one has to do that salisa, and it has to be done by a kohen kosher, and it has to be done b'kli shares. However, Amar lo Reb Shimon, what a strange drasha. You need a pasuk to tell me that a kohen is going to be lighting the fire. Says the Gemara, al daitcha shezar karev legabi mizbeach. We have halachos about these things. He can't get that close to the mizbeach, a non-kohen. It's impossible. Why would we need a drasha? Reb Shimon says to Reb Yehuda. Why do I need a drasha to tell me that it has to be a kohen? That's like ABCs. Of course, a kohen has to be up there, and of course, a non-kohen is definitely not allowed to be on the mizbeach. Ella, therefore, Reb Shimon pivots and says not like Rabbi Yehuda. It has to be that you're physically standing on top of the mizbeach. Rabbi Yehuda, how would he then respond to this good argument of Reb Shimon that we don't need a pasuk to tell us that it's a kohen, only a kohen's allowed there? Says the Gemara, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, the reason why he gave his drasha, which was seemingly obvious, was because of the following Yimei Hasam. Avamina koya arav avid b'mapucha kamashmalan. Maybe a Yisrael, a non-Kohen, could stand far away, and he could have some type of air blower, an air machine that would put oxygen into the fire and increase the flames. So therefore, because we don't allow that, therefore kamash malan, we needed a drasha. So basically, Rabbi Yehuda would say back to Reb Shimon, you thought it was so pashut? It's not so pashut. I could come up with a case that isn't so pashut, and that's why we need a pasuk. The Rav Meir, according to Rav Meir was our third shita. He added that one of the fires that exists is to, during the regular year, was to consume the extra body parts of animals that had yet to be consumed. So nafkalemi ve'esh. He learns it from the word ve'esh, and this is from the pasuk that says ve'esh hamizbeach tu kadbo. That vav v'rabbanon. What do the rabbis do with this drasha? It says the Gemara vav lo darshe. They don't make a drasha from this particular vav. Do they never make a drasha from a vav? It depends who the rabbanon are. But from the Gemara here, it says that this vav they're not dorish. What do they do if the rabbanon don't agree with Rav Meir that there needs to be a special fire for Ivar Muptarim? So how do they burn them? They still need to be burned. Okay, so it's not going to be its own special fire, but you still need to explain how they're going to be burned. It says the Gemara as follows. We're right at the last line. It says the Gemara. It gets put back on the big fire on the Mizbeach HaChitzon. The Tanya is the Brisa writes. How would we know that the meats that are not consumed on the fire from the night before, turning to the top of Memhem Beis Sudron al Gabe Mizbeach, that we should lay them out on top of the wood that's on the Mizbeach so that they can be consumed? And as well, the Brisa continues, if there isn't enough space, that we put them on the ramp in preparation for them to be burned on the Marach HaGdolah, on the Mizbeach HaChitzon, or Gabe Sovev, or on the rim that's right around the Mizbeach area, until there's enough space on the Mizbeach to do it. So this is a great answer because we don't have a separate fire. Reb Meir has a separate fire for the Eivar Muptarim. So the Gemara says in the name of Reb Yehuda, we don't need that. The Brisa says just put it in the regular fire. We don't need a special fire for this. The Reb Meir, what would Reb Meir said? Oh no, you misunderstood. This is Ikule Ola hu atamachzir v'yatamachzir Ikulek Torres. This Brisa is only talking about Ikule Ola, but the Torres doesn't get put back. Yatamachzir Ikulek Torres Titania. The Brisa writes as follows: Rabbi Hananya bar Minyumi. What's the drasha here? So he says, Ikule Ola atamachzir v'yatamachzir Ikulek Torres, and therefore Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda can sustain their shitas. The Kule Alma Mihas, however, one of the common denominators we've seen in our Mishnah and the shitas of the Tanoim of our Mishnah is that Mosifin Bo Bayom Islahu Minalo. How do we know that we add a different fire, a special fire for Yom Kippur? That's true by Rabbi Yossi, by Rabbi Yehuda, and by Rabbi Meir. Everyone seems to agree. Says the Gemara, Nafkalemi H. That's because of two letters, the Vav and the Hey. It says the Gemara, even according to the Rabbanan, like we saw on the bottom of the previous Samud, who are not Dorish, the letter Vav, says the Gemara, Vav and Hey, Dorish. Even if you're going to say the Vav is not sufficient to make a drasha from when there's an extra Vav and an extra Hey too much, at that point you have to make a drasha. Says the Gemara, let's dig in a little bit more. The next pasuk reads, Eish Tamid Lamai Asa. What does that pasuk come to teach us? As the Gemara Mibayle Lechidatanya to teach us about the following. Right? Eish Tamid Kadon Mizbech Lo Sichbe. Limit al Maracha Shel Torah Shlo Tehela Al Mizbech Achitzon. This teaches us that the location of the Maracha Shel Torah, of the small fire that was used to create embers for the Torah, that it can only be placed in the Mizbech Achitzon and not in the Mizbech Hapnim. Says the Gemara as follows. Good, you've made your point about that pasuk. Let's understand a little bit more. What about the Aish? Says the Gemara. What about we're halfway done, Memheim base. What about the Aish Machto Menorah Minayin? How do we know that the shovel that's going to be used for the Ketores and that the menorah, how do we know that those also have to be drawn from the outer Mizbeach? The fire for the menorah has to come from the Mizbeach, and the shovel from that's going to be used for the Ketores has to come from the outer Mizbeach as well. Minayin, how do we know? Says the Gemara V'denu. We have a Gzer Shava. We have a Kal V'chomer. Nemra, a Gzer Shava actually, excuse me. V'denu, here's the rationale. Nemra Eish B'Ktoras v'Nemra Eish B'Machta U'Menorah. We have the word Eish in reference to the Ketores, and we have the word Eish in reference to the shovel that's used for the Ketores and for the menorah. Malahalan al Mizbech HaChitzon, Nafkan al Mizbech HaChitzon. In all cases, in all three cases, it needs to be that they are drawn from or taken from the outer Mizbech. They cannot be taken from the inner Mizbech. Says the Gemara, maybe this is part of the Brisa. Oh, Kalach l'derech. Maybe we should have a Havamina that we could say the Kal V'chomer a different way, the Gzer Shav a different way. We have the word Eish in both places, all right? The start of the Gzer Shav is the same. The drush is different, last short line. Maybe we should assume that they can all come b'samach, they can all be drawn from the fire, from the Mizbech that's closest to them. And the Mizbech that's closest to the menorah is the Mizbech Hazav, the one that's inside the Heichal. So says the Gemara, therefore, that's why we have another pasuk. And what does this pasuk teach us? How does it teach us that it has to be on the Mizbech HaChitzon? Says the Gemara, it has to be at the rosh of the Mizbech HaChitzon. So that's how the Gemara explains that the Gzeira Shava is teaching us that the Ketores and the Machta and the menorah all have to be drawn from the Mizbech HaChitzon and not from the Mizbech HaPnimi. Says the Gemara, Lamanu Eish Menorah, Eish Machta Minayin. Let's detail a little bit more. We learned a little bit about the menorah. The pasuk is speaking about the menorah, but what about the Machta? Says the Gemara, B'dinu, it's very logical to assume the Machta as well, that the shovel has to come from the Mizbech HaChitzon because Nemra Eish B'Machta and Nemra Eish B'Menorah. Word Eish is said both by the Machta and by the menorah. We proved the menorah a line ago. Now we're connecting menorah to Machta. Malahalan al Gabe Mizbech HaChitzon. Just like the menorah, we draw the fire from the Mizbech HaChitzon. Aftan here too, by the Machta, by the shovel for the Ketores, that too is on Mizbech HaChitzon. And then the Brisa again gives it's teeing up an idea to shut it down. Oh, Kalach L'davar L'derech. Maybe we should say the following, that the Gzer Shav is different. 6 lines from the bottom. Maybe we could misunderstand the Gzeira Shava to assume that it's besamach, that you could even take it from the Mizbech that's closer to the menorah, and that would be the Mizbech Hazav in the Heichal, the one that's on the Pnim, and not the one that's Bachutz. Says the Gemara, therefore, Talmud Omer, key word here is milifnei. The Meforshim explain that it's in front of, but not fully in front of. A little hard to understand in the words, but milifnei, from in front of, and the Mizbech, the Gemara understands it, only part of the Mizbech is in front of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Which Mizbech is that? Well, the Mizbech that's inside the Heichal is completely inside the Kodesh. So it must be the Mizbech HaChitzon. So it says the Gemara, Izu Mizbech Shemiksaso Lifnei Hashem ve'en Kula Lifnei Hashem. Which Mizbech is partially opposite the opening of the Heichal, but not all of it, because the opening of the Heichal was only 20 and the Mizbech was wider than that. So the center part of, depending on where the Mizbech is placed on the north-south axis, that's a machlokas too, because we saw Shita earlier in the Gemara that the Mizbech was all below the halfway mark. But whatever it is, there's only part of the Mizbech that's opposite the opening of the door. So which Mizbech is it? So Heavy Omer is a Mizbech HaChitzon. It has to be that way. And then lastly, for tonight, the pasuk that we're learning right now reads, and it's 5 lines from the bottom of the page. It says, and then it adds the words in milifnei Hashem. So the Gemara says, why do we need both of those phrases? That's what the Gemara wants to know. So 3 lines from the bottom, we need the Torah to write both me'al mizbeach and as well the mechtav amilifnei Hashem. Why do we need both? Says the Gemara, the Katsav Rachmana Me'al Mizbeach. If I would have thought I had only had the pasuk of Me'al Mizbeach, Avamina Mizbeach Mizbeach Panimi, I could have easily misassumed that I was talking about the Mizbeach Hazav, the one that's inside the Heichal. Therefore, Katsav Rachmana Milifnei Hashem. So that doesn't work. It can't be that it's on the inside. Because of Rahman Milifnei Hashem, but if the pasuk only had included the words Milifnei Hashem and Nami Al Mizbeach, then Havamina Dafka Milifnei Hashem, only the specific part of the Mizbeach that is closest to the Kodesh, the western side of the Mikdash, which is really Milifnei Hashem, and not only that, it's only part of the western side of the Mizbeach that's opposite the Heichal. Aval, top of Memvav Medalev, Aval Mehai Gisa Mehai Gisa. So let's say that this screen right here is the opening of the Heichal. So the Mizbeach was bigger, right? So then the piece that's off the screen, right? The piece that's to the right of the opening of the Heichal, the piece of the Mizbeach that isn't directly opposite the opening, let's say there were a couple of amos on each side, that's Mehai Gisa Lahai Gisa, it's off the screen. It's not opposite the opening of the Heichal, because again, the opening of the Heichal was 20 amos wide, but the Mizbeach was larger. So then I would have thought Amalo that that's not considered to be as holy a place. Therefore, tzricha, we need both psukim. We'll stop right here and pick up tomorrow night with Daf Mem Vav and Mem Zayid and Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful day.